Well, Donald Trump is driving the left crazy by indicating he'd love a third term as president. Here's what he told reporters on Air Force One last night.
I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me.
Jokes aside, he spoke about those who are best, in his view, to succeed him.
Well, we have great people. Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable.
And joining me now is Daily Telegraph journalist who's laughing away here at Trump, James Willis, and former Chief of Staff to Bill Shorten, Cameron Milner. Great to see you. Well, James, I have to get you with that.
I just think it's great with Marco Rubio standing there sort of shaking his head in embarrassment. But look, at the very least, the media that we are seeing every day and the spectacle of Trump in office is something else. But I will say, and people talk about a third term, okay, technically it's against the law, it's unlikely to happen. He would also be, I think, 82 by the time that came around. But the enthusiasm and the work rate of this president and the amount that he has got done in the first 10 months in office in the Middle East, making efforts with Russia and Ukraine. And you mentioned last week, I think he's hosted maybe 57 different countries in the White House before Australia. He's now getting ready for big talks with China, which are obviously critical on a range of fronts, including the opium trade and making sure that Americans get their fair say, big tariffs along the way. But God, look, if nothing else, you have to admire his work rate. It is astonishing for a 79-year-old.
Yeah, completely incredible. There's no way I could keep that up. But Cameron, you know, he mentions Marco and JD, and I thought it was interesting he didn't say which should be leader. I think Marco Rubio is incredibly sensible. I think he's brilliant. And I'd be more concerned about JD Vance. But JD Vance does seem to be the more popular figure within the MAGA movement.
Well, it seems to be the case, but isn't it clever of Trump to actually have the future sort of divided while he can rule the roost? I mean, to your point, James, what an amazing first 10 months, incredible first 10 months in government. And let's hope, the next 3 years and 2 months, the rest of this term, is as productive as he's been in the last 10 months. It's extraordinary to see a US president being so active, not only in America, but around the world.
He doesn't get the credit for that. He really doesn't. Everyone's so quick to criticise him, but look at what he's actually doing. And
just a final point on that, I think this sort of weighs into this conspiracy that the left and the Trump haters have, that he's drunk on power and is never going to let it go and will somehow change the rules and get another third term. And it just weighs into that narrative for the people that can't give Trump any credit, no matter what achievements he does on the world stage.
No, true. Now, meanwhile, Kevin Rudd has been door-stopped by the media, this after Trump criticised him last week. It's just tonight.
Is it good to have patched things up with President Trump?
He doesn't forget people who quote say
well,
bad
you know something?
about him.
You know what I think is that the Prime Minister had an excellent meeting with the President of the United States, and we're here to do a job.
Is it good to have patched things up with him, Mr. Rudd?
Mr. Rudd, what do you think of those comments from Donald Trump that he doesn't forget people who quote say
well,
bad about him?
you know what I would say is that I'm from America and I'm here to help, and my name's Kevin.
Oh, that was kind of a cringeworthy line. Cameron, do you think he will ultimately stay on?
Look, I think so. I think there's probably another year left in Rudd. Stephen Smith's the one who's probably going to come home by Christmas and be replaced in London. So I think Rudd stays for another year. But I think the funniest thing in the White House last week was not even being recognised across the table by President Trump. That was the real insult to Rudd.
Yeah, what do you think, James?
Oh, I think that it was funny because when Donald Trump was first made aware of those comments, when he was interviewed by Nigel Farage on our affiliate in the UK.
Trump, you mean?
Sorry, Trump. Yeah, Trump was interviewed and sort of immediately you could say, OK, he's going to hold a grudge here. And then it was clear he'd forgotten about it until that meeting in the White House where he said to Rudd, "You said bad." And Rudd had to sort of make up an excuse. And look, to be honest, I still think, and I agree, I think Rudd can still contribute, and I think he does deserve a small bit of credit for what was done in this meeting the other week. However, one-on-one with Donald Trump, it's the kind of thing that he won't forget. And ultimately, Kevin Rudd should not have said what he said, assuming that Trump would never get back in at a time that he probably thought the president was going to jail rather than back to the White House.
By the way, I don't think Trump did forget. I think it was just a line. I don't know who your ambassador is because, he knew it would hurt, right? But I think he knew he knew who was going to be in that meeting and he knows what Rudd had said.
Yeah.
Now, Cameron, you've got stuck into the United Nations in your column this week. You say that it's time Australia recognise the need to unhitch our future security from the United Nations and instead embrace our true friends and allies.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think the United Nations had its place after 2 world wars, but it's not fit for purpose any longer, Sharri. It's become a citadel of wokeism, but also, too, appallingly anti-Israel. And let's just call it for what it is. I mean, there were 1.5 million people starving in Gaza under Hamas in 2022, but no UN motions, no court cases, no nothing. But Israel starts to self-defend, and wow, the UN, is suddenly in action. No, the hypocrisy is rank. And they've done nothing in Ukraine, nothing to stop China aggression in the South China Sea, nothing to stop the Middle Eastern problems. They moved a motion against Iran. Well, it took Israel and the US to bomb them to actually stop that nuclear threat.
Yeah,
so the UN is utterly irrelevant, other than being, as I said in my column, a circle jerk of NGOs, hangers-on and a few diplomats who think they're still relevant at the UN General Assembly.
I'd say also, I don't know why we keep turning up just to be lashed. And every time we have one of these meetings, particularly on energy or climate change, Australia is isolated and told that our coal exports are a major contributor to what is going on with global temperatures. Now, it's simply not the case. What we burn here and what we export is not. China is, and the UN picks and chooses which issue it goes after. It's been terribly unfair on Israel, but also at the same time leaving out, there's been atrocities occurring across the globe that it hasn't said a word about. So I think we can give them a miss, in my view.
And played no role in the current ending of the war, if you like, with Israel and Hamas. That was all down to the President of the United States. Now, let's have a look at this report card on the Prime Minister. Now, the Centre for Public Integrity has given Albanese an F on transparency, an F for fail. And it says the government has failed on 6 of 7 key fields, including secrecy, jobs for mates, and reining in lobbyists. Now, Cameron, you get to see how the government operates up close. Would you agree with this assessment that it's a fail?
Oh, look, I think it is. And let me speak on the issue of lobbyists. I mean, there are people who are campaigning for Albanese who are lobbyists. There are people who are doing selfies and paying for cash for access as lobbyists with Albanese. I mean, it's a rotten show. And the state systems, be it Queensland or New South Wales, are much, much better. Far more integrity at the state level than the federal level. So Albanese needs to be called out this. I'm glad the CIP has, but his first action should be reforming lobbyists in Canberra.
So just to clarify, when you say cash for access, what you're saying is donors who support the Labor Party are then getting access to meetings as a lobbyist.
Absolutely. So the lobbyists are showing up with their clients' cash or their own cash, buying access, buying that seat at the table, buying the selfie with the Prime Minister, and that's what they're paying for, and that's a disgrace.
And Sharri, when there's so much government money on offer now and governments are spending like never before, and you look at net zero and all those things, it's amazing that for all his faults, David Pocock is the one that is speaking the most about this and the fact we need transparency on lobbyists. We need to know who is... Some of these people have 24-hour access, as I understand, and can sort of walk around the corridors as they wish. And the idea of a lot of money at stake is the kind of thing that we need some transparency on. Albanese promised to do something about this. I might add that this report card is done by a group that boasts former judges and corruption busters on its board. So it's a very reputable organisation. Also, Labor's not doing any hard interviews anymore. They're deliberately just putting everything through social media. They think they can win elections that way, and probably fair enough. But they've stopped doing hard talkback radio chats. They certainly wouldn't come on.
Is that the case?
Well, they're not doing as many as they used to by far. I mean, you might be lucky to get a shadow or a fringe minister on, but I mean, Chris Bowen isn't fronting up to 2GB or 3AW every day and answering hard questions. They certainly wouldn't come on your show and answer, and I'm sure you've asked.
so many
On
times
so many
I've asked
occasions.
for Albany. I mean, to think, not that this is about me, but I'm the only Jewish nightly television host, and even right after October 7, with the anti-Semitism crisis, the Prime Minister would not do an interview. None of them would.
Yeah, they're being very, very deliberate in avoiding the tough questions, in my view, and just putting everything on social media where it's all a big joke.
Yeah. Not much transparency at all, that's for sure. All right, Cameron Milner, James Willis, great
Thanks,
to
Sharri.
see you both.